Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in and welcome back to the Insight NFL Fantasy Podcast. Flying solo tonight. I don't have a couple of amigos with me. DFAB, unfortunately, unable to join us this evening, and fearless leader, Captain Mav. He's been earning the big bucks all year round. He's enjoying himself over in Thailand. I'm sure he's just tanning his tush and getting nothing but bulk massages over there. So, running the show tonight. Just a bit of an overview. This is going to be a rebuilding episode. In this show, I'm going to try and break down some key insights on rebuilding and what kind of avenues you can take and when it's time to call that shot and just blow your team up. Your team isn't getting anywhere. You're nowhere close to contending, and you really just don't have enough pieces to kind of put something together for a sustainable future. So it's just time to blow it up and start fresh. So starting off tonight, we've got a little bit of news from our last show last week. George Pickens traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Just going to pull that up real quick. So the Steelers sent Pickens to the Cowboys, and they got a 2026 third-round pick and then a pick swap in 2027. So just really looking at this trade as a whole, I think it's great all around for every fantasy piece. Pickens, he gets an opportunity in a new spot with a better overall offensive ecosystem, much better quarterback in Dak, who's willing to throw that ball deep, and he complements CD Lamb really well. And I don't think this affects CD Lamb's value at all moving forward. If anything, he's going to take less shots in that middle of the field, and it's going to open things up, and the coverage isn't going to be so heavy on him. So all around, I think in this deal, Dak, in my eyes, is probably the biggest winner. We've seen what he can produce when healthy and when he's got a great receiving core under his belt. Back not last year, the year prior in 2023, finishes the QB 3 or 4 with 30 plus passing touchdowns, and his receiving core definitely isn't going to be what it's projected to be with Pickens on board and healthy. So huge news for Dak owners. If you've got him, well done. You've absolutely cashed in. If you're a Pickens owner, all in all, I think you're going to be very happy with that trade, because the system in Pittsburgh and the addition of DK Metcalf, he was definitely going to be playing second fiddle. And with Arthur Smith calling the shots, they're just going to be running the ball a heap, and there's not going to be a lot of the pie to go around for Pickens. So all in all, a great deal. In other news, Derrick Henry was announced earlier today that the Ravens have extended him for a couple of years, paying him huge money. I believe it's 25 mil guaranteed over the next couple of years. So extending him, he was playing in his last year of his contract with those guys. And yeah, it's just really looking at this, it's just changing the whole running back market in the NFL. Barkley had that huge performance last year and pretty much carried the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. And they extended him for it and paid him for it, as they should. And now Derrick Henry is just following suit. Had a career year at the Ravens with 5.9 yards per carry. That's his highest in his career. And also he set the franchise rushing record for touchdowns as well for the Ravens. So all in all, some big fantasy news, heading, in the middle of May as we head closer to OTAs, which start up in a couple of months. And then also furthermore, when the season starts in September. So still things happening. That's just the great thing about NFL in my eyes. It's just, it's always running all year round, and you just can't get enough of it. So also just to slide in, even though a lot of people probably aren't too interested, Aaron Rodgers, still no deal to be done. Still waiting. Everything's lining up that he's going to be going to the Steelers, and I think that's pretty much a done deal. I think just the moves that the Steelers made in the rookie draft. They took Will Howard in the 5th or the 6th round. They moved Pickens, probably to bring in A-Rod's boy and Alan Lazard or Randall Cobb or someone along that nature. So watch this space. Aaron Rodgers, he's probably just taking his time. He's an older guy, doesn't really want to, train during OTAs, probably wants to go to another ayahuasca trip or something like that. So still to be done. But with this show, so all in all, it's going to be rebuilding a dynasty team. And I know we spoke in a previous episode about a month ago about rebuilding or repositioning and how that kind of looks. Um, when it comes to rebuilding, to me, this is a full reset. I'm getting rid of all of my valuable assets and my older assets. So, for example, running backs, anybody over really 25, 26 is players I'm moving because they still hold value. You can still get something for them. And, the bottom isn't going to fall underneath of those guys. And same thing with quarterbacks. If you don't have a young quarterback who's kind of aspiring or even on a rookie deal, I'm just moving them. It's probably and with these deals still with rebuilding, it's all about timing as well. So season start or preseason, we could move all these guys just for future picks and call it a day, or we can take a bit of a gamble, which fantasy NFL tends to be, and we can wait during the season and hopefully these guys have big performances and we can cash in on that. And also capitalize if other managers in those leagues, sustain an injury. For instance, when CMC got injured last year, I know a lot of teams were begging for some running back help, and that's when you can get premium value in the market and get those deals done. So key insights on rebuilding. So really, and it's a tough one, rebuilding. I know for me, in my first league that I first joined up in NFL, probably about 5 years ago, drafted well, thought I had an idea, and then I traded Nick Chubb for pretty much peanuts, and that's when he was a top 5 dynasty running back at the time, and basically just cooked my team from that point. And from there, I decided to rebuild. So broke everything down, look to acquire future assets or look to target guys that are kind of in a low point in their market, and also where I projected them to take a step up, whether it be the upcoming year or even the year after. For instance, a good rebuilding target, just as an example, Roma Dunze last year would have been a great target, especially midway through the season. Yes, he came in as a high-level prospect and a 9th overall rookie pick in the NFL, but teams that kind of drafted Roma Dunze, they might have needed help halfway through the year, and they just thought, you know what, I haven't seen anything from Rome leading up to this point. Let's just move him off for a more stable asset. I'm not willing to wait. And that's where you can cash in. Perfect for rebuilders. Cash in on that value dip. And look to hold those guys as they accrue value in the future. And so, for instance, too, when it comes to rebuilding, you really want to build around young quarterbacks and young wide receivers, along with future rookie picks. Because as you kind of look at the landscape of things, and I've got a little bit of a treat. I'll be later on, which I'll tease now. We're fully reviewing a dynasty team that's active, and we're going to be picking little spots of what moves to make and what kind of direction to go with from there. But yeah, for instance, rebuilding, it's moving off your valuable assets while they still have value, i.e. Jonathan Taylor still has value, still projected to be a top 10 running back this season. And he's still got a couple of years left on his contract as well. So he'd be a good target to move on. And yeah, it's all about building around those quarterbacks and those young wide receivers and future picks. Because at the end of the day, if you are rebuilding, you want to position your team to be in a better spot for your future draft picks. If you've got no players on your roster, your points scored and your record is going to be very, very low and in an absolute prime spot to get the 101 next year and also years to come. And another hard pill to swallow when it comes to rebuilding, you just got to fully commit. You can't just kind of dawdle and move a player here, move a player there, because then you just kind of, your team is meddling. It's not really going to improve drastically. And especially if you do fully commit and you hit on a couple of those draft picks, your team can just change for the better straight away. For instance, the year before last, even last rookie class, if you had 3 rookie picks in the first round, say you hit Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, and Brock Bowers, which very well could have been a possibility if you had the 102, 104, and maybe a late first as well. Those 3 picks have just completely changed the landscape of your team and have just drastically boosted the overall value of your team moving forward. So we've got to gamble. We've got to accrue those rookie picks and just take shots where we can and just try and play that market as well when we are trying to move away guys from our team and build up those assets. But jumping into it, I've got so to give you guys a bit of a context, one of my leagues that I actually commissioned, we had an orphan. A manager wasn't too active last year. I think he had a couple of injuries and he was just completely off it. Moving into the new season, we needed a new guy to take this spot. Guy that I know jumped on in, doesn't have too much of an idea around Dynasty. It's his first time joining a Dynasty league, has dabbled a little bit in redraft, but now he wants to get his toes wet and take over this team. And taking over orphans, it can suck because you didn't draft these guys and you don't really hold any weight with how they fit on your team. And you just kind of have to bite the bullet. I'm going to strip this thing down, and in 2 years' time, hopefully we're in a completely different place than where we are now. So I'll pull this team up. A little bit of context on this team. I'll just flip this over so you guys can see. So we're on Sleeper. A little bit of context. This team is a 12-team Superflex Dynasty League. Start 11 spots. And for our audio listeners, there's 2 running back spots, 3 wide receiver spots, and it's a 2 tight end start. And it's just a normal PPR. There's no extra premium or half point for tight end points per reception. So let's go through this team. All right. So looking at it at face value, this is the starting lineup: Dak Prescott, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Kyle Pitts. Can't even remember this dude's name. Johnny Munt, that's him. Johnny Munt at tight end, Chris Godwin, Najee Harris, Geno Smith. So that's the starting 11. Even just looking at this team for what it is, there's not really a lot of depth, and this is just the starting roster. I mean, you've got CMC and JT as running backs. Your RB1 and RB2. RB3 is Najee Harris. And even looking at that, that's not sustainable. You've got Amari Cooper there. Yes, he doesn't have a team quite yet, but he is projected to join a team later on in the year. And even look at your tight ends. Kyle Pitts is your number 1 option, and Johnny Munt, couldn't even remember his name. He's your second option as your starting tight end. So big issues for this team. But let's get to the bench, because when it comes to Dynasty, bench plays such a drastic point. If you don't have depth and you cop a big injury, say for instance, this team, they would have lost Christian McCaffrey for 80% of the season last year. This team was pretty much cooked because I have no depth. And let's have a look at the depth. Quarterbacks: Ryan Tannehill, definitely should be dropped. Cooper Rush, Drew Lock, Skylar Thompson, Tyrod Taylor. That's all the quarterbacks. Looking at that, no starters. Nothing that's going to help this team at all. If either Geno or Dak go down, you're running one of these bench wide receivers or running backs in your flex spot, or in your super flex spot, which is going to put you at a huge disadvantage. To follow on with the bench, Samaje Perine, Justice Hill, Ty Johnson. Can't believe I don't remember that. Even rocking the Bills. Ronnie Rivers, Keaton Mitchell, Vele, Hollins, MVS, McLeod, Osborne, Bateman, De'Ami Brown, Austin Hooper, Deshaun Watson. A couple of guys on the bench which are not even worthy of note, but still has his future 2026 and onwards draft picks, which is a good start. To begin with. So, overview of this team: missing key pieces in your starting lineup, and absolutely no bench to help whatsoever if an injury comes down. So, looking at this, to me, in my eyes, this is a prime rebuild candidate. Just fully rip everything down. Let's tear it apart. Let's try and accrue some future rookie picks and young guys and see if we can turn this thing around. So, looking at a whole, yeah, it's so tough. A lot of these guys can be dropped that are named on the bench. Deshaun Watson got very unlucky there. I think this team had him from the start as well. So, back in the Houston days, Deshaun Watson looked like an absolute gun. Shout out to Damo's Footy. Hey, mate. How you going? Um, yeah, got very unlucky at the start with Deshaun Watson, um, in the position that he is now. Probably not going to take another snap in the NFL, to be completely honest, and just an absolute roster clogger. Yes, leave him on your IR spot. If he's there, maybe he comes back. There's probably a 1% chance, probably less than that. But on your IR spot, he's there. He's not clogging anything else. Happy to leave. And looking at this team, because they do have Amari Cooper, Damo's thrown up. What would you do if you owned someone like Amari Cooper? So in this position in a rebuilding team, he's got no value whatsoever at the moment. Absolutely none. I'd be holding off because I'm pretty confident Amari. He's still got juice left in the gas tank, and I can imagine that a team that's going to be wide receiver needy some point through the season is going to pick him up. Similar to the Buffalo Bills last year, Bills had absolutely nobody, and they had Cooper there. They could get him on the cheap. There was speculations that Amari might have went to the Dallas Cowboys pre-Pickens news, but I think that's pretty much their bed. But long-winded way of answering your question, Damo, but I'd just be holding on to Amari Cooper. But as soon as he's announced to join a team, no matter what the team is, I would be selling him in a heartbeat. You might be able to get a future second for him, maybe a couple of future thirds. There's really nothing else along those lines that you could really do at that point. And same thing, Damo's saying here again, Cooper and Keenan Allen, both guys I see in the same light. I think they're both hanging out, especially Keenan Allen, older guy. It was reported last year that he'd put on a bit of weight, so maybe he's just kicking back like a main guy Mav over in Thailand, just eating good, drinking a lot, putting on the kegs, and just waiting for his chance to come back into the NFL. And I also think with a lot of these older vets in the NFL, they don't want to go through just the effort of going through OTAs at the moment. They know what they have. They can read systems. They don't need to go through that. So they're just more than happy to sit back, wait until a contending team more than likely is needy for a wide receiver, and then they'll try and scoop in on a vet min deal and try and win a chip, really. But so looking back at this team, a lot of work to be done. Just at first glance, I'm definitely moving CMC, definitely moving JT. Honestly, pretty much everybody except Jamar Chase. And now I say this with Jamar Chase, just with how valuable he is in Dynasty Fantasy, I just don't think there's going to be a team that's willing to pay enough, and what you're willing to accept. In some world, perhaps you could get neighbors plus future picks. That'd be a great kind of move to make, because neighbors, I project him to trend along that Jamar Chase path, maybe not to the ceiling, but he's a young stud, very explosive, the clear number one, and he's 4 years younger than Jamar Chase. So you're just trying to recycle these older guys and trying to capture younger pieces. They're gonna be in your team for the long run. Back to it, DJ Moore, older wide receiver, DJ Moore, 28, entering year 29 or age 29 season as we come into 2025. Same thing with Chris Godwin, coming off a bad injury, 29, going to be running into 30. And then also the quarterbacks, Geno Smith. He's an older guy, just signed with the Raiders. I think he still holds a bit of value at the moment. And also Dak, I think now would be a prime time to sell Dak with the Pickens news. Like I mentioned at the start of this show, that addition of George Pickens to the Cowboys, for me, in my eyes, I'm trying to get Dak everywhere. So if you can move Dak now for higher than what you would have had previously, definitely jump on and try and make that move to happen. But that's kind of just the landscape as the team as is. One thing I did want to bring up, there is nice resources out there in the fantasy football community. This is a Dynasty League analyzer from the guys over at Dynasty Nerds. This is a paid resource, but there is other resources like Keep Trade Cut. I think they do a league analyzer. You just pop in your league ID or even your league username, and it just kind of gives you an overview of your league and kind of where you sit as is with your roster, the way that it is. So just looking at this one, this is a tool I love using, especially if you're managing multiple leagues and you're trying to find trade partners. You don't need to just spend all that time scrolling through your sleeper leagues, clicking on the team. Okay, what do they have? What do they need? This way, it just gives it all in a brief snapshot as is. So looking at this, as you can see, this is in Dynasty mode. They've got Contender and Dynasty mode. We can have a look at Contender. This league, Wish Me Joe Buck is the user for this team that we're reviewing. As you can see in Contender mode, bottom of the pack. And given the depth on his roster, any injury that he sustains, he's pretty much dusted. Unless he moves 2026 and 2027 future picks, which I just don't think is a good idea. I think this team just needs way too much work, and there's just going to be too much volatility if you move those guys. And, you know, if you cop another injury, you've got no future really. So, okay, but looking at this, switching back to Dynasty mode, same thing, bottom 4 projected. And now one thing I will kind of preface with these Dynasty tools, these are very subjective. I know the values on these, they're different to what I kind of think. For instance, I think Chris Godwin, his value, yes, the injury's there. I'm not too concerned about that injury. I think he's going to be ready to go come week 1 or even week 2 of the year. I kind of have him up towards DJ Moore. We just saw what Chris Godwin did last year when healthy. He was a top 3 wide receiver in points per game before the injury. So, but it just gives you a good overview. Use it as a guide. Don't use it as, you know, end all be all. This is just giving you a bit of an overview on what players are worth and what other fantasy teams in your league, how their team is kind of positioned and what needs they kind of lack. All right. So looking at this, we'll start off with the running backs. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm just going to be reviewing this team. I'm going to be typing up on a bit of a Google Doc, you know, moves to make, trades to kind of target, tips to remember for the future, and what kind of pieces that you can build around. So actually, I'll start with building around Jamar Chase. Like I alluded to earlier, I just don't think that anybody is going to be willing to pay what he's worth and what you're willing to accept. So I'm more than happy just to hold Jamar Chase at this point. He's only 25. Yes, this rebuild is more than likely going to take 2 years. It's not great to have that, you know, huge fantasy asset just kind of not really doing anything or contributing to fantasy championships, but you don't want to sell low on these guys. I know, yeah, if I'm moving Jamar Chase, I want a king's ransom. I want a young stud rookie wide receiver and a couple of future picks to tie in and just to try and add some more depth. But in terms of building block and non-negotiables, Jamar Chase is pretty much it for me. Everybody else, I'm willing to move, willing to deal away. And also your future picks, when rebuilding, never, ever, ever move off your own future picks, because the whole idea is to blow your team up. Your win-loss is going to be absolutely shite. Your points scored is going to be shite. So your future pick for the next year, so in 2026, very good chance it's going to be the 101. And that's what we want. For us to get this team back on track, we need those high value future rookie picks. And of course, the higher they are in the first round, the better the odds are to hit on a banger to help save this team. So I've got that set, Jamar Chase and the future 2026 and 2027 picks to hold on to and build around. Starting off with Jonathan Taylor, we'll have a look at this kind of in a way. And what I mentioned earlier, I want future picks. I want young rookie wide receivers. For instance, looking at this team, and funnily enough, I'm doing this completely unbiased tonight. This is actually, a league that I commission and a team that I have in this league. Let's just have a look. That's not me. So this is my team here. Looking at this here, I've got stacks of wide receivers. Areas that I could probably improve is my running back. So for me, for this team I'm reviewing, I could be a great trade partner, especially when it comes to moving off these running backs in JT or CMC. As a trade suggestion, I would probably think Jonathan Taylor for, who do I have on this team? Maybe Rome Odunze. You know, in my eyes, I'm very high on Rome Odunze, so I wouldn't do this. But I know with all these additions that the Bears added during the draft, fantasy managers who have Rome Odunze might be a little bit skittish. They might be thinking, what's going on? Ben Johnson, he's drafted 2 high-value guys. Maybe they're going to be highly used in this offense. Maybe Odunze is going to be left for dead a little bit. maybe it's time to capitalize. But for this exercise, moving off an aging running back like Jonathan Taylor, 26, 27 years old, still a couple years left on his deal, and getting a young wide receiver who is yet to break out well and truly. So his value hasn't really eclipsed that high mark of where it could be. For me, that's a great kind of trade angle that I'm looking for. For Christian McCaffrey, I don't think the value is as high as probably what you could get for Jonathan Taylor, just given that the age. I think he's a few years older, 29, I believe. Christian McCaffrey is heading into the season, and coming off, he played 60 snaps last year or something like that. So very, very skeptical of what his outlook's going to be. But in this position, you want to target contenders who are lacking in running back depth. So even, honestly, a trade that I'd probably do, Christian McCaffrey for a future 2026 first. I might even need to send that deal after this and see what we can do. But for the contender, they might be thinking, all right, CMC is worth a shot. If he comes healthy, he's probably got a year, 2 at the absolute max, I think, of producing in fantasy. And, for me, a contender, my pick next year, more than likely going to be a late pick. If I can get CMC for a year with the upside of him being a top 5 running back on the season, no-brainer pick. And another thing that I'm actually going to be doing with this, I'll just flick over. So I've got a bit of a dynasty team review sheet. So I'll just kind of walk through this. As I mentioned, moving off old assets, specifically those running backs, JT, Christian McCaffrey, and trying to target future picks or young wide receivers. So like we've got here, Jonathan Taylor, Rome Odunze. I think in terms of value, great deal. Best for the rebuilding team. You're getting a young wide receiver that has potential to grow even higher, and you're moving off an older expiring asset in Jonathan Taylor. For Jonathan Taylor, again, a future first and a future second. I think this is a deal that you can absolutely get done. People could be a little skeptical of the situation there in Indianapolis. I know the quarterback play isn't going to be anything great. Jonathan Taylor, he doesn't really get much in the receiving game, so it's pure just rushing volume. His rushing production and also touchdowns is where his upside is going to be. So if you can move off him for a future first and a future second, or a young wide receiver like Rome Odunze, I think that's just an absolute no-brainer, and it'd be a great direction to take this rebuild. Looking at CMC, again, like I mentioned, future first. Hey, if I had CMC rebuilding and I can get a future first, that's a deal that I'd love to take. And I saw a value with a CMC trade in one of my leagues today. I think it was the 203 and the 210 for CMC straight up. Value is pretty much there. So, and the best thing about this, these guys are not going to really rate their future picks, or on contending teams, they're not really going to rate their future picks as high as what they probably should, especially mid-season too. So another thing that I also want to discuss, when we are selling players, not even just in rebuilds, but in the pure scheme of dynasty, you really want to target those opportunities, those windows of opportunities. So say mid-season, a contending team loses a running back. Say, for instance, Derrick Henry goes down with an injury. You have a running back that you held onto, that you wanted to gamble and think you might have been able to get a little bit more value for, or you try to get deals done pre-season and nothing was really happening. That team now that's lost Derrick Henry would be paying an absolute premium to get another vet running back who's going to produce straight away. Just like that. So now you might be able to get a future first and multiple future seconds. If you gamble mid-season and run into one of these opportunistic windows of selling Christian McCaffrey, you might be able to get a little bit more on top. But purely for me and this exercise, if I've got CMC, I'm not taking the risk. I'm not taking anything that the 49ers kind of say regarding his health with any confidence. I just think that, that was such a murky situation last year with that injury, having that double tendonitis in his calves, completely out of the gate. We thought it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks, blew out to being a 3-month injury, and then he was just never really the same after coming back after that. So alleviate some of the risk, just moves off these guys now. And like I said, the less players you have on your roster, the overall better, because you want to bring down your win-loss and make sure that you can secure an early first-round pick with your pick. So we've got Jonathan Taylor, CMC covered. Nice and simple. They're very nice and simple trades that I think you'll be very easily able to get done in your dynasty leagues. And looking at Najee Harris, that was probably the only other running back of worthy note that you could probably get value for. Yes, I've already ate my socks with Najee Harris and the whole Amarian Hampton going to there and completely nuking his value. I am projecting that Najee Harris will have most of the workload come week 1. Say they have a game week 1, 2 or 3. Najee gets a couple of rushing touchdowns, maybe even a double touchdown performance. Bang. That is a prime window to move from Najee. At the moment, you might be able to get a projected late second, 2027 second or something like that. But if he has a couple of high performing weeks to start off the year, you might be able to get a little bit more. But so I've got here, look to sell early in the season, purely because I don't think the value you could really get anything of note. I think it's probably better off just to keep him and seeing how the season plays out. DJ Moore. So getting into wide receivers that we're looking to move off this team to rebuild. DJ Moore, prime candidate. He might be a little bit harder to move in Dynasty, just given the additions that the Bears had with Burden and Loveland. I still think DJ Moore is going to hold some great value, and especially to those contending teams. Very easily. I've got here a future first. I think you could, 9 out of 10 leagues, you can find someone who's willing to pay a future first for DJ Moore. No brainer. And that's probably even selling a little bit short. Sorry, future first, maybe a future second as well. But if you don't really want to focus so much on picks and you want to try and take a gamble on young players that aren't projected to do too much in their rookie year, I think these kind of players here listed are probably better directions. Given the format of this league, it's start to tight end. Colson Loveland, keeping it within the same team. DJ Moore for Colson Loveland. Loveland's value was around that 110, 112, even the early second range in rookie drafts this year. I'd be more than happy to flip DJ Moore for Loveland. I think he's definitely going to project a lot higher in 2026 and 2027. So he'd be a good guy. He could just sit in your starting tight end spot. Probably not going to do too much this year, I think. But he's 21 years old, tight end, and in this format, he could be on your team for 10 plus years to come. Along with Colson Loveland, Emeka Egbuka or Matthew Golden. Again, these guys run around the same range as Loveland, and there's a good chance Egbuka doesn't produce as much as what we'd hope in year 1. Could be a very similar scenario to Roma Dunze and Jackson Smith and Jigba, where he kind of sits a year, might have 600-700 yards, a couple of touchdowns, but nothing that's going to knock your socks off in terms of fantasy production. So again, try and capitalize on that, on where he's kind of sitting. A contender, if they pick him up at the 110, 112, and they want someone a little bit more stable, DJ Moore could be a very tasty player for that team. Let's just pull this over here so I've got a better look of this. All right, so, and same with Egbuka and Golden. I think Luther Burden. And again, keeping it within the same team. Luther Burden went early to mid-second. If I can get Luther Burden in a 2026 second or even a 2027 second for DJ Moore, no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone with this scenario. You're replacing an older wide receiver with a younger wide receiver, and you're also adding another piece, which is well and truly needed for the depth of this team to add on when you're ready to contend. Going down the line of wide receivers with value, Chris Godwin. A little bit of a murky scenario too with Chris Godwin, just given the injury. Like I said earlier, I think he's going to be fine come season start, but he might be a little bit harder to move off now, especially since they've added Egbuka. He'll be a prime candidate to move midway through the season when he has a couple of big games and like I said, a team is in desperate need for a wide receiver come injury. I think you'll be able to easily get 2 future seconds for Chris Godwin. But if you wanted to dip your toes back into a known asset at the moment, I think Jaden Reed would be a good pivot. Probably around the same value. Reed's value is a little bit nuked. Given the Matthew Golden, I still think it's going to be a big question mark, that Green Bay offense. It's going to be definitely one to follow along with the Chicago Bears. There's just so many mouths to feed. Definitely going to be a committee. And it's up in the air who's going to really, really hold the lion's share of those targets. But Chris Godwin, definitely prime moves to make for a rebuilding team. And now with the quarterbacks on the team of note, Dak Prescott. And I was thinking about this one today, right? I think Jackson Dart, given his rushing potential and given his current situation where he's more than likely going to be sitting for at least half the season or a year behind Russell Wilson, if I can move Dak Prescott for Jackson Dart, maybe a little bit of extra gravy on top. I know me, I'm a little bit greedy when it comes to those things. So if I can throw in a third, we all know that this team desperately needs depth. So if I can get a third or a fourth just on top to try and help target that need, that's definitely something I'm going to be interested in. Or even a future first for Dak. And again, this might even be selling Dak a little bit short. Given the Pickens news, I'm so high on Dak. I don't want to be biased. I wish Mav was here, the Dallas Cowboys fan representing the pod. He might have a little bit more of an inkling on what he thinks of Dak long term. But, even a future first or a future second, or with a future second, rather, just trying to add more pieces, more dart throws to help rebuild this team and build the depth up for these guys. And again, I think these deals are so, what's the word? They're just so achievable, these deals. Like Jackson Dart, again, went back end of the first round, early second. More than likely a contending team has just picked them up for depth space and just leaving him on his taxi for a year. They'd love Dak Prescott. I mean, damn, if I needed another QB in that league, I'd love Dak Prescott. That's for sure. And going down, Geno Smith, the only other quarterback on this roster that kind of holds any value. I think for Geno, he is older, so he's a little bit harder to sell. And especially at this point of the year, we've just coming off the rookie hype. And a lot of guys are kind of set with their quarterbacks. Just hold on. With how many injuries happen within the NFL, and of course we don't want to project injuries, but it's just something that happens. Quarterbacks get injured all the time. So again, just wait for your window. Be patient, stay calm. That you definitely will be able to move Geno off your roster in the upcoming season. But again, QB needy team. Let's say Lamar Jackson goes down or someone like that. All they have is future seconds or a late first. That's an easy swap, for me. I think you could well and truly get a future first for Geno mid-season to a quarterback needy team. I think that'd be an absolute bargain. Great for you, great for them. I think Geno's going to be a top 20 guy this year. I'm very high on Geno as is. But again, for a rebuilding team, he's worth nothing on this team. He's just going to be sitting on your roster, accruing points that you don't need, and jeopardizing your potential at getting the 101 next year. Also moving down, I'll just skip these down a little bit. Kyle Pitts, what an absolute disaster. Just, top 10 NFL draft pick, and had such a polarizing rookie year, record-breaking year at that point. And he's just, for lack of a better term, he's just a bum now. He's just, Darnell Mooney is outproducing him on that offense, and I don't think that'll change moving forward. If you can get a future second for Kyle Pitts, sure, I wouldn't move him for anything less. I'd just hold on to him and just hope that he has a couple of good weeks and you can kind of capitalize on that. But for now, a future second if you can get the deal done. And now I've got up here, I do have, pieces to build around Jamar Chase, future 2026 and 2027 picks. If you are looking to move Jamar Chase, I would be trying to get an absolute king's ransom in a rebuild. And this is probably the kind of moves I would target. A young wide receiver who has just all the potential in the world and can hopefully one day produce like Jamar Chase. For instance, Marvin Harrison in a 2026 first, plus maybe, let's say, a 2026 third. For this sake, I think that's a very achievable deal. In my head, I think Marvin Harrison is going to absolutely boom this year after the disappointing rookie year. Which in really, it wasn't even a disappointing rookie year. It was just where he'd been drafted in redraft. He was a back end of the second, taken as like the eighth or ninth overall wide receiver in redrafts, and you just didn't get your return of your investment at all. A lot of people are kind of pissed off at Marvin Harrison for that, but if you tune into and you're keeping up to date with Dynasty content, hold on to Marv Harrison. He is just projected to absolutely slam this year. But given that, if you can move Jamar Chase for Marv, so you're filling that spot of where Jamar Chase was with a huge projection for potential upside and value moving, and also adding in future capital in a first and a third, it's just the direction that you need to take. You just need to have in your head, I need to go younger. I need to add more future picks to rebuild this team. And then probably one which might be a little bit more fishy to get done, Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. plus a 2026 second. I think on paper, this is a very fair deal. I know for me, I'm probably just going to hold Malik because I'm super high on Malik, and I probably project him to be Jamar Chase plus he's 4 years younger. But these are the areas that I'd be targeting. If you can get something like this done for Jamar Chase in a rebuild, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. So, and given if with these moves, there's a good chance you'll probably have 3 or 4 picks in 2026, maybe 2 or 3 picks in 2027. That is just going to give you a huge kickstart to reposition this team to be able to do something in 2 years. But let's not forget, don't always hold on to your own picks when you are rebuilding, because those picks are just going to be projected to have such a high value with the 101, 102, 103 when it comes to rookie draft time. And one thing I will note here as well, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, with this team, definitely a QB needy team, given that he's only got Dak and Geno. The 2026 class is projected to be pretty loaded and pretty deep with quarterbacks. I know Arch Manning, he's probably going to be the cream of the crop if he chooses to declare, but there's going to be 3 or 4 other guys which are going to be projected in that first round. So if you can get a couple of first round 2026 picks and use them on those quarterbacks straight away, you've already repositioned and fixed that position of need on your team by going younger and taking upside swings on rookies. And also another thing to note, do not sell below market value. Just because you're rebuilding doesn't mean you need to give up guys for peanuts. Play the market. Your league. Each league is different. You want to capitalize on those windows in season when guys are going to go down and are desperate to fill spots on their team. Capitalize on that. Hold a couple of those pieces. Najee Harris, like I mentioned. There is going to be windows for opportunities, and you don't want to sell yourself short because especially in a position like this team just needs so much help. You want to try and win value deals for the long term with the moves that you make. So that's pretty much it for this team review. Just kind of brief overview of what position I would make to rebuild. In my eyes, this is a 2-year hard rebuild. And of course it sucks. 2 years, I'm just going to waste 2 years. I'm paying fees for this league. But the way that this team is positioned, if you don't make this kind of change now, you're just going to be playing catch up for years to come. And it's just not going to do your team any favors. So I'll just run through this again. This is the overview here, and guys, this is something new for us here at the Insight NFL Pod. I think just given just the sheer, the amount of stuff that we can talk about and the different angles that you can take, given on specific team needs and specific team building paths, we're going to be looking at doing this in the future. So within the next couple of weeks, if you are joined in our Patreon, there is going to be opportunity where we're going to be doing these rebuilds or team reviews live on stream. There's going to be more than just me, so it won't just be one biased take. We'll have Mav, Mav and DFAB as well, giving their input and giving you, I guess, different thoughts on certain deals. But it will be exclusive to Patreon members. So there is a link in the video description below to join our Patreon. It's free for the Insight NFL podcast. Doesn't cost you anything whatsoever. And we do throw in up to date. We'll have our rookie rankings within the next few weeks in there, along with trade targets for rebuilders or trade targets for contenders. All Dynasty fantasy football content is just going to be flooded in that Patreon, and we've also got a WhatsApp group as well, which you can, if you jump on the Patreon, we can align you guys and get you joining that WhatsApp group, and hopefully we can be reviewing your team live, and it won't cost you anything. So if you're stuck with what your Dynasty team, don't really know what direction to take it, drop a like on this video, drop us a comment. Hey, I'm interested in getting my team review. We'll send you through a little path to join the Patreon for free, and also the WhatsApp group, and we'll put you on the queue to review your team and hopefully improve it for years to come. And that'll pretty much wrap us up here, guys. Just a nice short one tonight. We will be without Mav again next week while he's still just living the life over there. Yeah, he'd just be getting bulk massages, Mav. Yeah, that dirty bugger. But and also DFAB should be back with us next week as well. So thanks for tuning in this week with a solo show and a Dynasty team review. Just giving a bit of an insight on paths that you can take when rebuilding your teams, and also trade targets might be beneficial if you have these guys like DJ Moore, JT, CMC in your teams as is, and you're not too sure on what paths to take. This could be a good start and give you some ideas to go out there and start making moves. So thanks again for joining in. We'll be back next week as always. And please, if you like what you see, drop us a like, give us a 5-star review on which platform that you're listening to. And yeah, we'll be around here all year long, counting down to the 2025 season. Just Dynasty fantasy football, baby, never sleeps. See you guys.